Ukraine meets with the coalition of the willing and the American delegation in Paris. What do you expect? Does this mean that Europe has joined those sitting at the negotiation table? We discussed these issues today with Dmytro Topchiy, founder of Liberty Ukraine Foundation. Dmitry, nice to see you.
Hello, nice to be here.
So let's start with the question that Ukraine has already held a meeting with the coalition of the willing in Paris. The details of the meeting will probably not be fully available in the information space. At the moment, the focus of experts and analysts are interesting. So I'm curious about your opinion on how significant the potential is for Europe to provide assistance to Ukraine if this is done without the participation of the United States.
So, first of all, we need to start with the fact that Ukraine needs to be flexible and start looking for alternative solution to the issue we're having with the weapons, ammunition, and the situation on the front line. If we look at the support, the amount of support that European Union, European countries, and basically all other countries except the United States is providing to Ukraine, then collectively that help is bigger, much bigger than the help that U.S. is providing. Of course, at this moment, right now, Ukraine critically needs support from U.S., but we definitely need to work closer with everyone else, with any other country, try to increase the level of support to make sure that we are not dependent on U.S. help, because at the moment it's in question because of the Trump administration. So I believe that Europe could do much better. Europe could do more in terms of support of Ukraine in military aspects and financial aspects. I guess it's slowly but sinking into European leaders, understanding that there's a huge threat to European countries and the neighbors of Russia and the entire Europe if Ukraine will not be strong. So I believe European countries should see Ukraine should actually help Ukraine to become that powerful, in military terms, buffer between Russia and European countries. So that's in their best interest. So yes, I believe Europe could do much better, and Europe could play a vital role in supporting Ukraine.
So in your opinion, could the arrival of the American delegation to Paris today indicate that the United States still doesn't want or can't lose economic and military control in the European zone?
But you're absolutely right. I believe that Trump's administration, they're not ready or would be ever ready to give up on Europe in terms of their influence on Europe, right? So European markets are very important markets for American products, and we could say that because of all of the tariff war that's happening right now, and it's not only because the United States has all of the effect or control over European markets, but it's also because American economy needs European markets. At the same time, I'm pretty sure that Trump is not ready to give up on Europe in terms of the military influence, right? We do have a lot of military bases, American military bases in Europe, and they are crucial in terms of the American security and defense. So making sure that U.S. has its own hand on what's happening in Europe in terms of the military control, in terms of the military powers. Of course, U.S. is not ready, even though they always keep saying that America should focus only on America. But as we know, globally, it doesn't work that way. So you need to be present in all other parts of the world to make sure that you are, as a superpower, can control the situation and influence the situations. So definitely, Americans need to be present at those talks, and that's in their interest.
Marco Rubio and Witkoff arrived in Paris on a visit. During this visit, according to available information, they will meet with the Ukrainian delegation. What do you think is the main purpose of this meeting, and what is the expectations?
So, unfortunately, I think we know what's going to be happening. So, Witkoff had a meeting with Putin, and I'm pretty sure there was a lot of information that Putin put into Witkoff's head, and I don't think that information is anyhow good for Ukraine. So, I guess that's the main reason for them to meet with the Ukrainian delegation to try to convince Ukrainians, and then we know what that will be about. It will be about the territories that Russia wants to keep and for Ukraine to recognize as being completely under Russian control. So unfortunately, there are no good news for Ukraine at this moment, and I think that Ukrainian delegation will be under a lot of pressure from the Americans to agree to those demands from Russian terrorists. As far as we know, America does not negotiate with terrorists, but at the same time, they're trying to convince Ukraine to negotiate and agree to terrorist demands.
Recently, Witkoff, Recently, Witkoff shook Putin's hand and said that Putin has supposedly ready for just and complete peace. In his speech, Witkoff conveyed to the whole world Putin's cynical position that peace is possible only if Ukraine gives us a significant part of its territories. How, in such a situation and with such a vision of American officials, can agreement on just peace be reached?
That's precisely what I said just now, that's what Russian vision of a peace agreement. And in Russian vision, that means Ukraine need to surrender, technically surrender the territories and technically give up everything and kind of agree that there is no one's fault except Ukrainians. That's the vision of that America is agreeing on under Trump. That there's nothing that could stop a peace process. But what's really sad that Trump's administration does not understand that that peace is not a peace. It's actually a surrender for Ukraine and Ukrainian army and everyone that we lost in this war. So that vision is being pushed, and as a main agenda and the only way for peace in our country. But I guess the rhetorical question is if Ukraine needs such peace.
Actually, I don't understand the purpose of the Trump's administration. What do they try to achieve with this pressure?
Trump been dreaming about the Nobel Prize in Peace. So for him, making sure that he has an influence on something that actually he does not, would actually satisfy his desire for that, right? So for him to stop the war, meaning that there is no active combat operation, there is no combat action going on. For him, that means peace. That means that he won, and that actually would mean for his administration that's another win into the bucket, and that's something that he could come back to his supporters and say, "Hey, I told you I'm going to stop the war." But unfortunately, people don't have enough information on what that peace actually means for one of the sides. So to your question, what he's trying to achieve, he's basically trying to achieve his personal political gain, just to say that I've done it. He doesn't really care about the mechanics and the results and the outcomes of that peace.
So the problem is in conveying information to Americans from the Ukrainian side, or what is the problem? What do you think?
You're absolutely right. Americans are actually supporting Trump. They absolutely delusional. I'm sorry for that word, but that's true in terms of the Ukrainian question. For them, Ukrainian war. And that's something that actually Trump said. It's something like Ukrainians decided to start on their own and now begging for money. So basically, Ukrainians are being portrayed as the one that just started something as little kids and now running around and asking for help. So as far as we know, that's absolutely not true. Ukraine been invaded by a terrorist state, Russia, and Ukrainians are being killed by those terrorists. So yes, part of the Americans actually, they have no clue what's going on in Ukraine, and they just bluntly believe what Trump says.
Given that the meeting with the American side is taking place in Paris, could it mean that Europe is already joining the table where future prospects for peace are being discussed at this stage, and that this will help Ukraine in the negotiation track?
So Europe is waking up, right? We've seen a lot of steps that they've done. Unfortunately, at this point, Ukraine having troubles affecting the peace negotiation process that America is leading, right? Because basically, the United States are discussing a lot of things about Ukraine without Ukraine, and I think Ukrainians and Ukrainian delegation, Ukrainian side is not able to provide enough proof, enough arguments for Americans to use during those negotiations with Putin. So that's why I think European allies are great friends and tools of ours to help to bring the Ukrainian agenda to the table. So I absolutely agree that holding these meetings in Europe would actually help Ukraine to present its own side of the question and its own arguments. So yes, that's a good news for us. So hopefully we'll see some progress.
A few days ago, Trump said to Ukraine that you can't start a war against someone who is 20 times bigger than you and then hope that people will give you a few missiles. How would you comment on these words and who are they aimed at?
So at least Trump is being consistent. So he's lying about what's happening in Ukraine, and he's been lying about that for a very long time. So there's nothing new over here. It's just getting sometimes more ridiculous and more harsh on us Ukrainians. So those words he said in his, I believe in his Twitter account, I'm sorry, the X platform X, and he basically been talking about the desire of Ukraine to buy weapons from the United States. And the response was that, as you said, you cannot start the war. But here's the biggest problem. Ukraine did not start that war. Ukraine never asked for this war. Ukraine never wanted this war. And Ukraine was not ready for that war. So that's the first big lie that we could see in that post. So we need to be clear, and that's what actually a lot of activists here in the United States are trying to do, to explain to people that are still have not heard, or they don't know it, or don't believe in it, that Ukraine did not start this war, and that's the main thing. So by saying something that he said, it's very harsh on your ally, and it's very upsetting to all of us Ukrainians, and actually a lot of Americans that actually know what's going on in Ukraine. So this post, these words are again aimed at his supporters that voted for him, voted for Trump, supported him, or still supporting him. And for them, that's another checkbox that Trump done what he was supposed to do. Because he understands if Ukraine will be getting more and more weapons, even though as a help, as a support, or in this case, Ukraine would buy the weapons, Ukraine will become stronger and stronger, and then it's going to be much easier for us to push back Russians. That's not Trump's agenda. That's not how he sees things unfold, and that's not what's going to make him big in his eyes in terms of about his influence. So that's why he's pushing back and trying to find this, unfortunately, unbased, provocative post to make sure that Ukraine is not getting what it actually really needs.
Everyone knows that Trump is a businessman, and we talk about this a lot of times, that he's a businessman and he has business interests. He's interested in money. At the same time, he doesn't want to sell missiles to Ukraine. What is stopping him? How do you think? Are there any agreements known only to him and Putin, maybe, about the prospects for bilateral relations?
Math, simple math. That's what's stopping him, because he understands that if United States will continue providing help, as I said, either for free as a support or selling weapons to Ukraine, Ukraine will be getting stronger. That means Ukraine will be pushing back the Russian armed forces, and that definitely is something that Putin will not like. So that basically now put in question potential business interests of Trump in Russia, because we need to be very clear, Trump is interested in dealing business and making business with Russia. So I guess if you do the math, I think doing business with Russia is definitely more profitable for him than selling weapons to Ukraine, giving weapons to Ukraine, and be on the side of the democracy and sovereignty of Ukrainian nation. So for him, it's business, but then he's doing the math. So doing business with Russia is more interesting to him.
How do you think? How does this distortion of facts affect Americans or those who believe or support such messages other than Russians? So how do you think? What is Trump's? Вибачте, спитаю інакше. How do you explain this distortion of facts that Ukraine started this war?
I think it's actually very simple. It just takes some time and effort, right? So when you take a person that bluntly believes in everything that Trump is saying, and spend the time with just showing the facts and describing the historical things that was happening and unfolding in Ukraine in 2022 or even into 2014, and just giving them the information and giving them the sources, it's easy to convey to people and explain them that that's not what it is. Unfortunately, it's impossible to explain this to everyone who supports Trump. I think the propaganda that's happening right now in the United States, in terms of the Europe, in terms of the Ukraine, in terms of the war in Ukraine, it's a big machine, and that whole big machine is being supported by this political elite that support Trump, or Trump supports that elite. So it's a bigger media informative war trying to make sure that people understand and do not forget. It's not an easy task, and a lot of people in the United States, a lot of Ukrainians, and a lot of Ukrainians have been living over here for many, many years, actually are eager to do and trying to do to make sure that more and more Americans are aware of reality and what's happening in Ukraine, and that Ukraine definitely did not start this war.
There are a lot of information about possible easing the sanctions, and Bloomberg write about this. How do you think what this easing of sanctions, given in such in current position of Ukraine, what could be easing led to?
I really love our conversation because it's so interconnected. It actually proves my point that Trump is interested in doing business with Russia. By easing sanctions, that would actually lead to opening the markets for American products, opening the markets for Russian products, and trans-economical connections between the United States and Russia. So that's all about money. So we need to be very clear on that. So Putin, he could say it 1,000 times that sanctions are not affecting Russia, but that's not true. Otherwise, he would not be pushing so hard to lift those sanctions. So sanctions actually hurt Russia. They hurt Putin personally. So he would be looking for all of the different ways of lifting those sanctions. And he finally found the way, Trump. Trump would definitely be happy to lift those sanctions and put pressure on everyone who still has sanctions against Russia. Just for one simple reason, to do business with Russia, do business with Putin, and again, make sure to prove everyone that he was right, but no one is actually looking at the cost of his truth and him being right.
Dmytro, thank you for this conversation, and I'd like to remind our viewers that today with me on this interview was Dmytro Topchiy, the founder of the Liberty Ukraine Foundation. Thank you.
Thank you so much.